Hello everyone, Ian Wishart here to bring you another sensational episode of the Take a Pew podcast. I'm joined of course by the trusty Simon Clark. Say hello to the listeners, Simon.
Hello to the listeners, Simon.
Yes, well that wasn't funny in our very first episode, and it hasn't improved with age. But anyway, how you doing, me old mucker?
Yeah, all good. Happy as Larry.
It's funny you should say that, mate, because only the other day I was wondering who is this Larry who has somehow become the benchmark of happiness. I guess it must come from somewhere.
Yeah, well maybe our listeners can do some research and let us know. It's probably just a random expression.
Yeah, but there's a few of those. I mean, for example, why did the humble cucumber become the epitome of cool?
Yeah. Or who decided that chips were the cheapest thing you could get?
Exactly. I mean, I bought a portion of chips last week and they cost £1.90. That's not cheap at all. I mean, I guess the raw materials of a potato...
Do you think we should get on with the show, mate?
Oh yeah, sorry. You're quite right. Yes, our guest this week is a rector back in our own diocese of Guildford. Nice short road trip this time.
Yes, we've come to darkest Surrey to meet Hannah Moore, rector of Elstead parish and Thursley parish and Shackleford parish and Pepperharrow parish.
Blimey, has she left any parishes for anyone else?
I don't know, mate, but I guess we can find out.
Yes, let's do that. This is the Take a Pew podcast with the Reverend Hannah Moore.
Hannah Moore!
And here we are indeed in the lovely Surrey Hills, and we're at the home of our guest, the equally lovely Hannah Moore. Hannah, welcome to the show, and please, take a pew.
Thank you.
Hello Hannah, lovely to meet you. Perhaps you could introduce yourself to our wonderful listeners.
Well, hello, I'm Hannah Moore. I'm 48. I'm married to Michael, and we have two children, Rachel, who is 21, and Reuben, who is 18. I was ordained in 2016, and I am currently the rector of Elstead, the priest in charge of Thursley, and I've got that wrong. I'm the priest in charge of Shackleford and Pepperharrow and the vicar of Thursley. So I have not only 3 parishes, but 3 titles too.
Fantastic. That sounds very complicated. We'll get into that. But thank you for joining us on this Take a Pew ride through your journey in life and faith. We're looking forward to hearing all about it as well, of course, as exploring your favourite things and your perfect picnic.
Yes, and getting your insight in is it true, and particularly your answer to my random question.
Indeed. But as ever, let's begin at the beginning. Where did life start for you? I understand that it was somewhere that is a 178-hour drive from Johannesburg.
It is. So I was born in the wilds of Biggleswade in Bedfordshire, and apparently it's where the Brussels sprouts grow.
Okay.
And quite smelly too.
Do you like Brussels?
No, I hate Brussels sprouts. So that was back in 1974, and after a few years we moved to the north of England. Lived there just for a few years, and my dad came home one evening and said to my mum, "We are going to South," and she forever finishes his sentences and she said Hampton, and he said Africa. So we then packed our bags in 1979 and headed off to the wilds of South Africa.
How exotic. I mean, that must have been quite... I mean, you were obviously young at that point.
Yes, yeah.
But it sounds like it could have been quite an adventure back then.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think my dad actually flew out 2 months before us. I remember as a, sort of a 5-year-old driving back from the airport, listening to Leo Sayer, leaving on a jet plane or something, and my mum sobbing, my sister and I sobbing. And I had a little silver locket that my dad had given me, and I had teeth marks in it. And I've still got it in my jewellery box upstairs, because for the 2 or 3 months that we were separated from him, I used to just bite it all the time. But my mum had to finish her school term, and then we flew out to join him. And it was a really strange thing to do. I remember vivid memories of arriving at Johannesburg International Airport and just seeing lots of black faces, which I don't think I'd ever really come across. And people with guns on their belts, sort of a belt level, eye level as a child. Khaki uniforms and guns on people's hips was quite an eye-opener to life.
Goodness me, what an introduction.
Yes.
I could just imagine. But
yeah.
at least you flew there rather than taking a 178-hour drive.
Oh, absolutely.
Which would have been.
Yeah.
So did you settle down over there?
Yeah, so we went to a place called Secunda, where my dad was working on the...
Is that where they make the watches?
Yes.
Don't worry, there's plenty more of that.
Please, no.
Went to this place called Secunda, which was where they, in South Africa, they make Sasol petrol. So my dad was working on the petroleum plant there, and there were lots of expats. So Americans, British people. There was one sort of English-speaking school that we went to, and a lot of expat community. So we had, everybody was doing things that colonials do, like having G&Ts at 5 o'clock. And
You're a bit young for that, weren't you?
I was. But I was introduced at a very young age to Jello squares by my American friends. Oh, disgusting things. They're parties. You get plates of food, and they're these Jello squares, which are rubberized Jello that you just Anyway, but it was, we were introduced to things like t-ball and softball and all sorts of things like that, which was good fun.
Sounds a lot. Sounds great fun. And you mentioned school there, the magic school word, which of course is the magic prompt for our first question for you.
What were you like at school? Were you a little bit geeky? Or were you a little bit freaky? Or were you a little bit cheeky? What were you like at school?
Yes, what were you like at school?
I was probably a good girl at school, I think. In that school in Secunda, my first memory of actually being hit, corporal punishment, was being hit with a ruler at the age of 6 for playing with a propeller pencil, fiddling with a pencil, and being called up and having my hands smacked, which my parents did not appreciate at all.
Oh dear, was that in front of the class then?
Yeah, you used to get called up and whacked. But I also was and am dyslexic, so school was, a bit of a challenge in some ways. I would rather be outside kicking a ball than reading a book. And all through my school career, actually, my mum, as a teacher herself, used to give me lots of extra lessons in the holidays until I was 13 and told her to leave me alone and I'll sort it out myself, which I did. But actually, I quite liked school. I liked the sports. I liked the being with people, friendships and stuff.
Had some good friends then?
Yeah, I had some really good friends. Had some difficult things towards the end of my school when we'd moved, and was sort of isolated a bit for telling the truth about something. And my friends didn't like that. Sort of dobbed them in a bit. So I was a bit isolated. But luckily I had Michael, my husband, I'd met at school, so he was a constant pal.
Oh, wow.
I met him at the age of 13, so we've been together all that time. So he was my good buddy at school. And and in fact now we've got friends who now live in the UK who I was at school with. We are godparents to their children and things. So school was fun. I liked it. I liked being on the playground, playing football, especially when we moved, when I was 8 or 9, we moved to a Catholic school, and the brothers went into the staff room and said, "Who's that new little boy running around playing football?" Because I always had short hair. And my mum said, "That's no boy, that's my daughter." And but I loved sports because it was that school was a particularly small Catholic school. There were only 600 students right the way from preschool right the way through to school leaving. Everybody knew everybody. It was a great school community, and you did everything.
So apart from the sporty stuff, any particular subjects you...
Oh, I loved history. I loved history. I just found it fascinating, and even now, we just had a holiday away in Northumbria and bought a book about the Lord Percys and whatever, and we'll read that.
I think we've had one of our my favourite things has been your favourite period of history. Do you have a favourite period of history?
I like the Tudors. I think they're an interesting family. I think there's this huge amount of family dynamics there that you just like, oh goodness. And just that human thing about trying to grab power is very interesting to me. So
it sounds like quite a lot of fun, which we may have some good material for our next question.
What's your fondest childhood memory? What's your fondest of all your childhood memories? What's your fondest?
Oh, yes. What's your fondest childhood memory, Hannah?
I think it would be those early times in South Africa where my mum, my dad and my sister and I we were very much a four because we were in this foreign country, and we became very, very close. So I think my sister's 2 years older than me. She's absolutely my best friend. And my mum and dad got involved in all these activities that were on with the expats, including amateur dramatics. And we were left at home, my sister Emma and I, in the company of a domestic worker looking after us. And we decided to play Nativity. and which is great, for a vicar coming up in later life. And our floors were wooden floors, but they were polished with methylated spirits and polished. And we had lit some candles and to to do something with the nativity scene. And then all of a sudden, one of the candles went over, and there was this woof along the corridor as the polish burnt off and the meths burnt off. But just any time, I think, as I look back at that time with my sister, all the stuff that we, the games we used to play, she's just so much part of any of those times together. And as a family, as I say, really being so close together, playing card games, playing board games, we were always doing that together.
Lovely. And I'm pleased to come across the fondest childhood memory that involves arson.
I was going to say, yeah.
So,
We haven't had that one before.
no, we haven't. Finally.
I've been waiting for
We
that.
have an arson-based fondest childhood memory. There are a couple of I was thinking about childhood memories recently, and I was thinking of other things that one thinks back to. Is there a particular plate of food or meal or type that, if you think of your childhood, you go to?
Interesting question. I think probably it would be, there was a restaurant that was just outside Secunda in Evander. It was sort of a French restaurant, trying to be posh in South Africa.
Ooh la la.
Ooh la la. And it was probably the first time I ate snails. Garlic butter.
Oh, what do you think of those?
Not great.
No.
But you try,
They obviously had an impact.
It had an impact. And
yeah.
the only other one, in South Africa, there was a restaurant called Mike's Kitchen that used to serve the best ribs ever. So ribs, and the children's portion was ribs, chips, and the chips were served in a cabbage leaf. And my sister and I always used to tip the chips out of the cabbage leaf and eat the cabbage leaf, the raw cabbage leaf. So yeah, two sort of men. But the ribs were good. Mike's Kitchen ribs were good.
Very good. I wonder if it's still going. Who knows? What about a song or a piece of music?
You mentioned Leo Sayer.
I mentioned
earlier.
Leo Sayer. Yeah. Oh, there was this. What was it? Classic rock or something, where all the classical music was hyped up and to put to a different beat. I can't think what it was called, but anyway, we used to march around to that. But all sorts of things like Neil Diamond, the Carpenters, Leo Sayer, ABBA, all very much part of my growing up.
It's interesting because they all sound like parents' music.
They do. They are, aren't they?
I would say you're a bit young for the likes of the Carpenters,
But it was just so.
but that was what was on in the house.
That was always on in the house. So
It reflects that family unit, I think.
Yeah.
As that you were talking about. Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay, final childhood
Yeah.
thought. Smell.
My dad's aftershave, I think. I think my dad's aftershave.
I'm not going to say Wild Stallion because I won't say that.
I probably couldn't even tell you what his aftershave was, but it was really evident actually. He smoked most of my childhood, and he always smelt lovely with his aftershave. But it was this: he had a pipe. He used to go and get his tobacco particularly made. It was a mixture of cherry tobacco and bits and pieces. So there was the smell of his tobacco, but also his aftershave. And when he stopped smoking, that smell of the tobacco sort of disappeared. And I went to him one day. I said, "Oh, Dad, you smell nice. What's that difference?" And it was because he'd stopped smoking. But definitely cherry tobacco and my dad's aftershave.
Brilliant. That's great. It's a rich vein of
absolutely
interesting stuff there, isn't it? So you got to the end of school. What happened then?
So we were living in a place called Clarkstorp. Finished off school. My dad had been commuting up and down to Johannesburg for work, and my mum was still teaching at the local school where we'd been to school, and got a phone call when I'd finished school to say we're moving to Johannesburg. And literally didn't really ever say goodbye to anybody, and where we just sort of packed up and that was it. Moved to Johannesburg, and I was supposed to go to teacher training college, but I didn't actually get my place. So I started working at an aftercare centre, looking after children, and then start at the same time doing a part-time English and history degree. So I worked in the afternoons with children at a place called St Peter's Prep School, which is still there, all little boys, and spend the mornings studying and stuff.
And did you pick up on the teaching thing though?
So I literally walked out of my graduation with an English communication and history degree, and was offered a teaching post at a local school without a teaching qualification.
Oh.
It's one of those things, it's who you know, isn't it? So my mum was teaching with the head teacher's wife, and he'd heard that I was looking for a job. He actually phoned me to offer me an interview the night that Mike and I got engaged, and I don't really drink, but I'd had a glass of champagne, so I was a bit bubbly on the phone. I don't know what he thought. I don't know what he was getting. And I went and had the interview. It was a place called Houghton Primary School. Houghton was previously a Jewish neighbourhood. So this was 1996, and they obviously had the transition of government in South Africa. So there was a transition in schools. And Houghton was actually where Nelson Mandela ended up living. He's had a big house in Houghton. And when I started teaching there, we had, say, that's probably about 75 white to 30% black children, and within 2 years that had completely switched around, and there was hardly any Jewish children left in the school. They'd gone off to more private schools and things. And we had children coming out of the townships at 4 o'clock in the morning, driving from Soweto, an hour and a half in a bus, or a very dodgy bus, to get to school.
Brilliant.
And a huge, privilege to be with those children.
So how did that work out? 'Cause I guess you were in at the deep end, weren't you?
Oh,
really, without that.
My first day of teaching, I arrived in the class. At the start of the day, school starts at 7:45. I had 32 children in my class. By the end of the day, I had 40 children. They just kept coming in with a desk, and the head teacher kept appearing at my door. I've got another one for you, Miss Monday. Another one for you. And I had 40 children in my first year. I taught everything from Afrikaans, which wasn't my strong point, to French and everything, literally.
Wow.
And I look back, the children, when I got married that year, so I started obviously in the January, the school starts in the January in South Africa. And I got married in the August, and I've got a little book that the children made for me. And I think so fondly of those children. And it was a real stage of transition in South Africa. There was 2 children particularly I remember, a little girl called Stephanie, a little white girl called Stephanie, and a little black girl called Itumeleng, together in class. And in South Africa, you get this chocolate called Top Deck. The top part of the chocolate is white, and the underneath is milk. And one day they came to me and they got their arms around each other and they said, "Look, Miss Monday, we're Top Deck. We're the best of friends." And I look back, I can remember so many of those children's names, and I wonder what happened to them. They were so gracious to me and just lovely.
Very good. And God doing anything in your life by this time?
Yeah, I mean, God has always been a constant presence.
Okay.
I can't remember a time where I didn't have faith, and I think probably going to a Catholic school was part of that. And then Sundays we were at the local Anglican Communion Church at St Paul's in Clarkstorp. But not long after Mike and I got married, actually, we got married in a little chapel, St Peter's in Johannesburg. We were married by one of the first lady vicars in South Africa. And I remember going up to receive communion from her, and I was very aware that I heard something say, "One day you will do this, Hannah." And I was making my way in teaching, and I just sort of looked up and looked around, couldn't see anybody talking to me, and said, "Okay, that's fine, okay." I didn't sort of left it. But I just thought that my plan was to teach. That's what I was called to do.
I read somebody worked in a titanium mine as well. Or something.
Yes.
Where did that fit in?
Well, after Mike and I got married, we'd been married about 4.5 years. We just discovered that we might not be able to have children. So we thought, well, okay, we'll give this a try. And when I fell pregnant, we realised that him teaching and me teaching, we just couldn't afford to live in South Africa. So my dad, by this stage, was working for a titanium mine, and he offered me some part-time work alongside teaching to do some cost control and management. And then when I fell pregnant with Rachel, we decided that I had to leave teaching, which I left with such a heavy heart. I think if I had one regret in life, it would have been that. But it also taught me so many things. I mean, Excel spreadsheets and stuff that I use now, a lot of the stuff that I have put into practice in other ways, God was using that.
Equipping. Yeah,
Equipping.
Without you
Must
realising.
have tested your mettle, I guess.
But we were really affected by 9/11, actually, because we had all the funding in place for international investment to build this titanium mine. And we had been propping it up with our own pensions and our own credit cards and not being paid, actually, after a while. And then 9/11 happened, and literally the funding disappeared overnight. So we then made the decision to come back to the UK. But all the guys who hung on are quite well off now.
I can imagine.
Darn it.
Darn it.
Brilliant. So that brings us nicely back to the UK. So
Yes.
finally back here.
Yeah.
And did you get back into teaching when you came over here? Or?
So we arrived, and Michael was off. We were offered a teacher's flat for a year, exact 365 days in Fleet, and we really felt called to Fleet even before we'd moved back to the UK. Whenever we looked at a map, Fleet kept popping up, and we were offered a place in Fleet. Basically, I went back to work after I'd had Rachel within a week. I'd never had any time off. I'll be a stay-at-home mum, and I lasted 6 months. And then I set up with my sister our own business, doing after-school art and craft clubs and parties. And then my mum joined as well. And we did that. I had that business for 14 years. But alongside that, I also at various times went back in to do some teaching, some PPA cover. And that sort of coincided with my discernment process, actually, where I was doing PPA cover in the mornings at schools, getting lots of phone calls to go and do cover and whatever. And the moment I was selected, the PPA cover stopped, just like that. It was honestly the biggest slamming of a door I've ever heard in my life. I couldn't believe it, that God said, this is it, you're done in this. It still gives me sometimes a bit of a heavy heart, which is why I so enjoy going to schools for what I do now.
So after that voice saying one day you're going to do this, it took you a while to actually get around to that, though, to be fair, didn't it?
Yeah, probably about 15 years.
But you did eventually
bite the bullet,
as it were,
I did
answer
answer.
the call.
I did answer. I mean, I'd been working, when we moved to Fleet, we got involved with a new ecumenical church on the Heath, and I'd been involved in sort of some of the worship and children's work. And then the then Vicar, David Price, sent me an email to say, Hannah, come and see me. I thought, oh no, what have I done? I've done something wrong. And I walked into his office and I sat down, and he just said to me, he said, Hannah, have you ever considered ordination? And literally, the moment he said it, I had tickles in my tummy, I had goosebumps up and down my neck. And it was almost like being hit on the back of the head, because that comment, one day you'll do this, and yes, okay, all right, had been so deeply buried. But it was like, in that moment, wake up. I've told you.
Now, come on, get on with it now. Had enough of this.
Yeah, you've been waiting around for long enough. Just get on with what you're supposed to be doing.
No, brilliant.
That's funny, isn't it? Because we've had quite a few of our guests, that question's been asked. Have you considered ordination? And it's the reaction that that we've had from the different guests who just it kind of hit me. And this was a thing I had I have to do.
And it generally takes someone else to say something like, have you ever thought about being a vicar? Yeah. So it took you a while to get there, but you got there in the end, and then you did some training.
Yeah, so I was offered a place at Stets, first of all, down in Salisbury, and then went off to a youth and ministry weekend run by CPAS. And then while I was there, somebody mentioned about St. Mellitus. And so then after I got back from that weekend, I went up to a St. Mellitus Open Day, and it just fitted better with our life. It just was really, really great. It was, and I was so naive. I think one of the things that it said on my selection report was you need to become more au fait with the Church of England in England, because I've spent so much time overseas, and then came back to an ecumenical church. So I had to and I knew nothing about the liberal, the evangelical. I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know what style of theological college I was going to. It just fitted with what we were.
Just logistically
fitted.
It's probably not a bad thing, I think, is it really? Because it's easy to get caught up in all of that.
Yeah.
I mean, St. Mellitus has been popular, hasn't it, actually?
It has,
and I always think it sounds a bit like an illness, though. I've come down with St. Mellitus. It only affects people in Yorkshire.
It does in that certain accent, yeah.
The only thing I would say about St. Mellitus is it was wonderful and really good, and really good input and stuff. The only mistake I made is I made friends with all my really good friends, who I'm still really, really close with, are all in the Chelmsford diocese, which is a little bit of a trek.
Yeah.
I've managed to make lots of friends with Essex people.
Isn't that funny?
But they are still now, such a supportive sort of network. I think the people who go into ministry, the people that you make friends with in that time are so important.
It does feel as though you have many layers of friends. You've talked about the lifelong friends that you've got from various stages. It's lovely to have that variety, isn't it?
It is.
So clearly succeeded at St. Mellitus.
Yeah.
How was your curacy?
I was driving from Fleet to Send to go and see my spiritual director. And if you go that way, you go through Hale and Upper Hale. And I got stuck outside a church with temporary traffic lights. And I looked up and I saw a new notice board, first of all. And I thought, I wonder who the vicar here is. And I just said to God, well, this will do. And literally a week later, I got an email from somebody in the diocese, William Chalice, who was then the director of ordinance, to say, would you consider a curacy in Hale and Bagshotly in Hale? Which Mike and I went to go meet Alan and Leslie Crawley. Very interesting. I had two training incumbents because there's a married couple, so that was quite interesting experience. Very different from me in terms of actual theological sort of position and stuff, but it was really eye-opening actually. And I have to say that we laughed for 3.5 years, and a lot of the stuff that they taught me, Alan was very good at systems and spreadsheets and all sorts of stuff, really useful to me now, you know.
So I spoke to your excellent spreadsheet experience.
Yes.
Building quite an armoury of spreadsheets
Absolutely.
to the competence, that's very good.
Yeah.
So this was what year?
So I was ordained 2016, so I was there until I moved here, March 2020.
Right, and that strikes me that was kind of lockdown.
Yes, we moved here on Rachel's birthday on the 28th of February, and we're due to be licensed with a big celebration of 3 parishes, because this was a new parish grouping. Elstead and Thursley have always had a relationship for the last so many years, but Shackleford and Pepper Harrow were added at quite a late stage to this new parish grouping. So it's supposed to be a celebration service, and it went from being all these people to 15 people in the church. I think Bishop Joe says that I was the last person she did in person, and my family came across. And my sister said to me that evening, she said, I won't see you for 6 months. I said, don't be silly, I'll see you, And we didn't see her. I didn't see her, which was, obviously on
really
Zoom.
tough, given the background.
Really, really tough. So
Did you set floors on fire over Zoom? For old time's sake?
No, decided not to.
Okay.
But we did. We sort of. The first thing I did was basically have a Sunday where we had open prayer, and the very next action was to close all the churches as a new vicar of 3 parishes.
You were our 23rd guest, I think, on the podcast. And it struck me, I don't think I've ever asked this question. What is it actually like to be a vicar?
I was saying to somebody last week when I was in hospital, it is such a privilege to be a vicar, because you accompany people in their most difficult times, often in their most joyful times, and generally it's good fun.
Why is it good fun?
I think it's good fun because apart from my perspective, I can do things with children and stuff. I can share the word. I can gently plant seeds. So in some ways, I'm just a gardener. Okay, I'm never going to know what happens when I go into school, whether any of what I say to the children in that drip feed of assemblies week on week is going to have any impact at all. But I can just be a human face of faith. Honestly, to find myself last week in hospital opposite somebody who lives in this village, who I've met once, and still feeling quite unwell myself, but still being that priestly figure, so to say, put a hand out and say, can you come and pray with me? What privilege, that's such a privilege. But I never take myself too seriously, and I always have a good laugh.
Which is a very, very good philosophy. Evidently, you've spent most of your life not being a vicar.
Yeah.
Do you feel different as a person now that you're ordained?
Oh, they call that the ontological change.
Do they?
Oh, wow.
I think I do. I feel more of who I'm supposed to be. I remember one of the very first funerals I did, and I was terrified of funeral ministry. Really, really was. I thought I couldn't cope with people's emotions and all of that. I remember walking out in curacy ahead of the coffin to go across the road to the graveyard, and all I wanted to do was do a Charlie Chaplin jig and to kick my heels in because I thought, this is who I'm supposed to be. I'm doing exactly what God wants me to do. So there is something.
Oh, I shall remember that.
Yeah.
Whatever, orthodontic something or other. Is it?
Yeah. No.
And I'm bound to ask, what's the worst thing about being a vicar?
Doing interviews with chaps like us.
Well,
No.
apart from the Take a Pew
Take a Pew
podcast.
I just think the amount of administration that comes with this role now. But it's in any role, isn't it? I mean, I look at my husband doing marking on a Saturday, and it's just the wading through emails. I think that can be quite sapping, because it takes you away from what you're actually called to do, which is to be with people and to serve God.
So, well, as we heard, you oversee half the parishes in Surrey every year. So, but when you're not doing that, what do you enjoy doing to relax?
So puzzles, I love a good puzzle.
What sort of puzzle do you mean by that?
Jigsaw puzzles.
Oh, okay.
Our daughter Rachel was sorting out pieces last night. Got a new 1,000-piece puzzle on the go, and building model boats. So I've got 2 here on the side.
Oh, yes.
Can't
Oh,
see.
yeah.
Wow, they're proper mod boats.
Yes,
aren't they? Yeah.
so I've got a 3rd one on the go at the moment. We're busy making that. It's just all the miniature stuff, isn't it? And getting covered in super glue is great, and eating it off your fingers. Walking the dogs. You gentlemen have been introduced to our menagerie of animals this morning.
Wonderful. What a wonderful welcome party.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been binge watching Big Bang. Well, oh no, but sometimes, you know, just to escape into television and stuff like that is quite fun.
Yes, no harm in that. Follow a bit of sport. I
Yes, love cricket. Cricket is my absolute escape. Keep an eye on the football. Keep an eye on Liverpool. But I had a bit of a moral dilemma with the amount of money that they get paid a few years ago. It sort of came with ordination. Maybe that was my ontological change. But I do love cricket. I will avidly watch cricket. So.
Could you take if you had one of those boards, you could take a jigsaw to a cricket match, couldn't you?
You could.
And take the dogs as well.
Yeah.
Walk there with the dogs.
Yeah. Well, a few years ago, we took our little sausage dogs up to Guildford, to the Guildford ground, and the ladies, we went to go and watch a ladies 2020 match, and you can sit on the edge with the dogs in a deck chair and you watch them.
With a jigsaw?
Well,
Well,
might
next
lose a few pieces.
Spread it all out.
Next time. Well, delightful. Well, look, Hannah, we're coming screeching up to picnic time, which naturally means it's time for what one listener has described as a part of the show. And that is my favourite things.
My favourite things.
Yes, a very simple game, Hannah. We'll give you a category and you just have to tell us your favourite thing in that category.
A perfect explanation, Simon.
Thank you.
And our first category is always your favourite book of the Bible.
Psalms.
Oh, okay, another Psalms quite
Psalms
popular.
come up, yeah.
Yeah, definitely Psalms. Particularly sort of Psalm 121. But Psalms have got some lovely, just, you know, things that you can sort of hang your hat on in Psalms.
Excellent. If you had to go New Testament?
Oh, I think Mark. Book of Mark.
Okay, very good.
Yeah. What's your favourite bird?
A hoopoe. Which is
Hoopoe?
a hoopoe, which is a South African bird. So very rarely you get it in the UK. It's a little sort of chestnutty colour bird with a crest, and we had some nesting opposite in the eaves opposite in the house opposite us, and they're lovely. Little long beak.
Distinctive sound, chirp? Or
No, I don't know about it's just a sort of
just a
beautiful
beautiful looking
yeah,
bird?
absolutely.
Well, you weren't expecting that answer, were you, mate?
I wasn't, no, that stumped me a bit. Yeah.
What's your favourite bird?
I would say a pelican.
Pelican?
Yeah,
Pelican.
Pelican. What
Yeah,
about you?
Very good. I'm rather fond of the puffin.
Oh,
Yes.
where's this going to go?
It's not going
It's not going anywhere.
No, it's only no. I remember when I was young
When I was young.
in Yorkshire.
In Yorkshire?
I was a member of the Puffin Club, which they did books, a bit like Penguin books, but they were Puffin, maybe younger versions or something. So I've always been rather fond of the Puffin.
There we go.
Yes.
Very good.
Right, so Hannah, our third category this season it's always been a top 5, and this season it is your top 5 films.
Oh, I would have to give this quite a lot of thought, but the first one that comes to mind is Paint Your Wagons. Family favourite. Sort of Clint Eastwood singing What Could Be Better, and Lee Marvin, Hand Me Down That Can of Beans. So I think definitely Paint Your Wagons.
How does the song go in that one, do you know?
I'm not even going to go there.
It was a family favourite because the opening scene is they're burying someone, and it always used to amuse my dad no end that they were burying this guy, and as they're burying him, they put the body in the grave, and they look, and there's gold in the thing, and they flick the body out, and it flies miles basically, and that sort of sets you off on hand me down that can of beans with paint your wagons.
Nice.
Things like anything with a musical. We like musicals in this house actually. Beaches, Bette Midler, Beaches, lovely story of friendship.
I remember that was quite old, isn't it?
Yeah.
Quite obscure, that one, yeah.
Yeah. We watch Marvel films. The Avengers. I like the
Yeah,
Avengers.
brilliant. Love
Right.
those.
You've got to accept that they are good, actually.
They are, yeah. So we try to watch them all in order so I could understand the universe, but we've kind of got waylaid on that. Shawshank Redemption, of course.
Yes.
Oh, that's come up a few times, that one.
Yeah, it's that's definitely our most favourite film, I think, isn't it? Great film.
And then sort of Harry Potter is often on repeat in this house.
That's a fair shout.
Yeah.
Any one you choose? If you could only watch one Harry Potter film ever again?
I think probably the Deathly Hallows Part 1.
Part 1, so you've missed the denouement.
Yeah, I mean, as I say, it's basically it's the go-to thing over holiday time. Somebody's always got it on a run through. But any musicals, and
as well. So,
oh yeah.
So if you had to pick, well, Paint Your Wagon's a musical. Is it a musical or
Yes,
is it
it
just got
is.
songs in it?
No, I think it's a musical.
Any other musical you might add on? You've had 5, obviously, so you're not allowed anymore. But I'll let you have a bonus musical.
Oh, I think Mary Poppins.
Oh.
I like a bit of Mary Poppins.
What do you think of the new one?
I've not actually watched the new one.
Oh, okay.
No, I've not watched the new one. I've sort of stuck away from it because
Because you love the other one so much.
Yeah. Don't spoil a good thing.
No, absolutely. Brilliant. Okay, next up, the new twist on my favourite things is we expose you to the Great 8. 8 quickfire categories to race through. So, here we go.
Yes. So your favourite book, apart from the Bible?
Favourite book?
Quickfire.
Anything at the moment by Jana De Leon.
Okay.
Brilliant.
No idea who that is.
No, I have to look that up one. Okay, favourite type of food?
Chocolate.
Oh,
Good answer.
That was much easier, wasn't it?
Top answer.
Favourite TV programme?
Favourite TV programme. So, at the moment, Big Bang Theory. I'm on a roll.
Yeah. In the middle of binging, it's got to be that.
It's got to be that, isn't it? Okay, favourite sport?
Cricket.
How's that?
Favourite band or music artist?
Carrie Underwood at the moment.
Oh, okay. Interesting. It's your go.
Yes, my go. Favourite holiday destination?
Somewhere in the mountains.
Any particular mountains?
No, just somewhere
up high.
just up high. We can walk and see. You can see a long way.
Yeah, we'll go with that. That's good.
Okay.
That's good.
Favourite chocolate bar? You said chocolate food, but which
yes,
bar?
chocolate bar. I know. Lint hazelnut, dark lint and hazelnut, which is got the roasted hazelnuts in. Really nice.
Funny enough, I think I bought my wife a bar of that this very week.
But then you ate it yourself.
Yes, on the way back.
Oh, it's yummy.
It's the thought that counts. Okay, favourite board game?
Mahjong.
Oh, good answer.
Yeah.
Very
Like
excellent. Well, look, you've definitely passed the Great 8 test, Hannah. Thank you. And that just leaves us with our traditional multiple choice category.
Oh, goodness.
Now, we mentioned that you once worked in a titanium mine. Mm-hmm. So we'd like to know your favourite mine. Seminal book, Mein Kampf. You mentioned you do a bit of music. So the saddest key in the world, which is clearly E flat minor. Or Mind Your Own Business. So Mein Kampf, E flat minor, or Mind Your Own Business.
I think it has to be Mind Your Own Business.
That's probably right.
Oh, that's yes. I think that probably does. But I do like a bit of E flat minor though. Excellent. Well, Hannah, I think you negotiated that very well, and it's time to have a little lunch break as we ask you the question:
What would you pick in your perfect picnic if the picking were up to you? Would you be sticking in some finger licking chicken, or would you be silly and pick a lily? Tell us, what would you choose? Yum.
Yes, what would you pick in your perfect picnic? But as ever, the first thing we'd like to know, Hannah, is where would you like your perfect picnic to be?
I think my perfect picnic needs to be somewhere up a mountain.
Yeah.
So I think it's about perspective, isn't it? Being able to see. And I've just actually walked part of the Pilgrim's Way, and anywhere along that, between sort of Farnham, Winchester and Farnham, there's some lovely spots along the top there where you can actually look for. So anywhere along there, really. And in my perfect picnic has to have some sort of roast chicken. I love a bit of roast chicken. But with some mayonnaise. And in South Africa, you get this thing called Cross and Blackwell mayonnaise, which is tangy, bit of tangy mayonnaise on a nice bit of baguette. So chicken with
roast chicken
baguette. On a baguette and some Cross and Blackwell mayonnaise.
Which bit of chicken would you like? Which part of the chicken?
I'm not partial really, because as the mum, you normally end up with the drumsticks and stuff. Right. So you just get
the bones.
Your bones. Yeah. You get used to it. So you
as long
know.
as it's not the parson's nose.
You're all right without the parson's nose. Or even a bit of brie and sweet chilli, or some on your baguette.
Nice. Yes. Nice. Well, it's not either or. I mean, you can have the lot.
Whatever
you can have the lot as well.
Whatever you like.
Okay. And then obviously you've got to have something chocolatey.
Yeah,
yes.
Absolutely.
That's goes without saying.
Bit of cake, chocolate cake, or more.
See, chocolate cake can often be very disappointing, can't it? Because it's looks promises so much, but actually there's nothing quite like a piece of hazelnut chocolate with. So something chocolatey, or a chocolate tart would be okay, I suppose.
Nice.
Yeah. So,
washed down with a bit of.
I'm dreadful. My habit is Coca-Cola, so not even a nice wine or anything. Bit of Coke.
Proper Coca-Cola.
Oh, I gave it up years ago, and I've fallen off the wagon this year. But I'm drinking Coke Zero at the moment, trying to be a little bit good, but failing. But if I'm going to have the chocolate, I better have something that's slightly less sugary.
And if you were to have a tipple?
Gin and tonic.
A G&T.
Nice G&T. And maybe at Christmas you take a lint teddy bear and you bite its head off,
yes.
and you fill it with Baileys and you use the teddy bear body as a cup. That's jolly.
That is brilliant. I like that.
That is jolly good. Or a reindeer. It works the same. So.
Or an actual reindeer.
Oh yeah.
That would be a lot of gin, wouldn't it? And probably not legal.
Not legal, no.
No.
That would be no. So I think the chocolate teddy with
a bit of Baileys
with a bit of Baileys in it would be a very fitting end to such a lovely picnic. And we hope that you get to enjoy such a wonderful picnic very soon. But let's just finish off our journey, because we've covered the past and the present. Let's look to the future as we bring you our most epic jingle.
12 years from now, where would you like to be? Working hard in a town, or chilling by the sea? 12 years from now, what would you like to be doing? Or would it mainly be the same? Or would you rather be canoeing for someone?
Yes, Hannah, what would you like us to be talking about if we were doing this show 12 years from now?
Well, I probably would be thinking that we would be talking maybe about grandchildren, which would be, quite nice. And in terms of what I'm doing now, I think I might be doing it, but maybe in a different form. I've got a real passion for vocation. So, it may not be parish ministry 12 years from now, but something to do along the lines of vocation.
Could you just explain for our listeners who may not know what vocations means?
So vocation is helping people sort of discern and understand what God's calling them to. And one of the things I do for the diocese is help with that in terms of chatting to people through what they think God's calling them to as an assistant DDO. And I really want people to flourish in their ministry, because without somebody asking me that question years ago, I might not be sitting here now. So it is about saying, well, is it about ministry? Is it about what you're doing in your lay life? So yeah, I really have a real passion to see people flourish, to be the people that God wants them to be. So maybe 12 years from now I'll be doing something more in that line.
Nice. Oh, well. Well, we wish you every blessing wherever life takes you, Hannah. But it's that part of the show where we get a bit more cerebral.
Oh, good word, mate. Yes, very, very good. Very shortly, Hannah, you can unilaterally raise the quality of the show with your spiritual pearl of wisdom. but not before we set another Bible theory straight. And we call this part of the show...
Is it true? Is it true? Is it true? Is it true?
Yes, is it true? And this time we have heard of some stunning new archaeological evidence in Jerusalem. A team excavating the site of the Holy Sepulchre have come across some intriguing pieces of what appears to be something like wire. And further detailed analysis has shown that they very probably belong to a musical instrument. And this has led to the conclusion that Jesus himself was particularly skilled at playing the banjo. So, Reverend Hannah Moore.
Is it true? Is it true? Is it true? Is it true?
I don't know if Jesus was skilled at playing the banjo. He probably would have sung in synagogue, so I think that part would be true.
Yes.
And David,
perhaps with a banjo, maybe.
Maybe with a harp or a lyre, maybe with something like that, a stringed instrument. But you know, I would have to think that it's not necessarily true.
You think they're a bit wide of the mark with the?
I think so.
Yeah.
Mandolin, maybe.
Well, he was, stringed instrument. He was plucky.
That's awful.
Yes.
You can always delete that one.
Yes, I do wonder what if all instruments had been available. I don't know what would have been. What would Jesus have played? What would Jesus play?
Well, I wonder whether that he would have played something like a recorder or sort of like a piper, getting people to follow him.
Yes, right. Okay.
That's I like that.
Yeah, little flute.
Little flute.
Yeah, like that.
Oh well, so we think, but probably not the banjo. We
Probably
think,
not the banjo.
Okay. Well,
sorry to disappoint you, Ian.
Well, we hear these myths and we just like to dispel them or confirm them, really. But I think I'm very happy to take your advice on that one. Thank you. And with that, Hannah, perhaps you would bless us with your spiritual pearl of wisdom.
It's a spiritual pearl of wisdom.
I was thinking about this spiritual pearl of wisdom, and one of the things I really think about quite a lot is faith and doubt. And often faith and doubt are put in opposition to each other. And I don't think they are. I think they sit quite comfortably next to each other as bedfellows. And often faith for me is like going to a well. You go to the well and you put your bucket in, and sometimes you pull it up and it's full to overflowing, and you just absolutely feel that you're so close to God. You're so, you're walking absolutely in his footsteps. And other times you have a lot of doubt and you have to keep going to the well. That's the part that you have to do. You have to keep going back to the well, and you put your bucket in, and all it comes up is a tiny drop of anything, of faith, and you feel that doubt. But actually you keep going back to the well. And for me, that I'm quite a visual person, and that image of somebody just keeping going when they have doubts, when life is hard, when you're facing illness, when you're facing difficult family relationships, that you continue to go back and drink from the water of life is for me is really, really important. That you don't have to give in to doubt or just think that you have no faith because people class them as in opposition to each other. You have to keep going back to the well. And when you feel so far from God, even if you get a tiny, tiny drop on your lips, it fills it gives you faith to carry on for the next part of your journey, because we're all on this journey of life, aren't we? So that is my thing. It's about just keeping going, keep dipping into the well to fill yourself up all the time.
It's a spiritual pearl of wisdom.
Well, thank you very much for that, Hannah. Excellent. And I'm sorry to say that very nearly brings us to the end of the show. Oh. But I'm notably more sorry to say that the only thing that stands between us and getting back to a fruitful life is...
Simon's Random Question.
Yes, Simon's random question. Simon, what's your random question for Hannah?
Well, Hannah, my random question for you is this. If you could do anything slightly mischievous, or even, dare I say it, illegal, in the certain knowledge that you wouldn't get into trouble and that no one else would remember it, what would it be?
Yeah, that's a very important question. You've suggested a mischievous side.
Yes.
Or maybe it would be that I was called to be the chaplain to the English cricket team, and I could go and sit in there, and I wouldn't be thrown out. I could put a collar on, and I could just go and sit in there, pretend that I was, called to be in the England dressing room. I think that would be jolly good, actually.
It's slightly mischievous, but it's good. It's good.
Yes, I wonder how long you could keep up that charade.
Yes, exactly.
15 years later. I wonder if anyone's checked on the chaplain of the England cricket team.
Yeah, I've always sort of thought, well, do they have a chaplain? I could just go and put a collar on and say, I've done. Here is your chaplain. There we go. Free tickets all round would be jolly good.
Wow, that's brilliant. Brilliant. That's a very good answer. We like that. I was thinking of just speeding or something. I don't know.
No, I got caught speeding once. I had to do the course. So.
Great fun, the course. One of my favourite courses. I think. But what about you, mate? What would you do?
I was looking at Hannah's wonderful collection of guitars. Yeah. For listeners at home, there's lots of nice guitars on the wall. And I would think I would break into not break in. Well, I would break in.
Yeah, why not?
Guitar shop is a fantastic guitar shop in Guildford. I'd steal one of their best custom guitars, take it home for a week, play it for a week, and then I'd polish it up, put new strings on it, and take it back.
Yeah.
Take it back?
Yeah, I'll take it back. I would take it back. I've got a conscience here.
That wouldn't be covered, though, so they would realise that you'd just come in with a very nearly new guitar that they had lost, so you'd get caught doing that.
And after playing it for a week, you'd probably make some marks on the frets.
That's true. You haven't thought this through, have you?
Not really, no.
No.
What about you, Ian?
I don't know. I have this is very mischievous. But I would quite like, given the context, I'd quite like to put some incredibly powerful laxative in the after-church coffee.
No way.
Yeah.
No way.
Just to see the utter carnage that would be wreaked in a group of people who, minutes before, had been going in peace to love and serve the Lord. And suddenly...
They wouldn't be going...
They'd be going for quite well.
It would be horrific.
Not necessarily in peace.
But no, that would probably be inappropriate. It would be very messy.
Oh dear.
It would make me laugh, but yeah, very good.
Very good.
Well, Simon, I think that was a particularly mischievous question. But in any case, that was
Simon's random question.
And there we have it. Another dip into the slightly strange world of the Take a Pew podcast is complete. Hannah, thank you for putting up with our nonsense, and thank you for being on the show.
It's a real pleasure.
And dear listeners, thank you for being there. We really appreciate your support. If you haven't already, please do follow and subscribe to our social media or YouTube channel. It's frankly hard to believe some of the amazing guests we've got lined up for the rest of the year. But for now, it's Toodle Pip from me.
And Tatty Bye from me.
Join us again next time as we take a pew.